Hey guys, we'll get started. So, for you guys who don't know me already, my name's Lee Cole, and we've been doing these masterclasses with Training Effective now for, I think, for myself, it's just over a year. Um, but no, in terms of tonight, it's a little bit different. This is a very common subject area which I've come across in terms of the age groups I work with 16 to 19-year-olds. So, anyone there on this call specifically who are like 15, 16 years old, and anyone on this call who are 18, 19 years old, um, transitioning into college academy football or even from college football into senior teams, so academy into men's football. This presentation is great, but also if any of you play up age groups or you'll be hopefully put in a position where you get asked to go up age groups, this is where this presentation can benefit you. So, a little bit about myself. I'm the Academy Director at Next Generation Pro Football Academy. That's a college program based in London, and I do it alongside Chelsea Football Club. So I control their college programs as well, and we've got one in South London, one in North London, and we'll end up building some in around other parts of the country. But alongside that, I also work with national South team. That's step two in English football pyramids called Cheshire United, and that's like part-time senior football on the side. In terms of the previous experiences and stuff, I've worked at various age groups from 14s all the way to first team at like Brentford, Crystal Palace, Wimbledon, but I've done that in terms of more academy coaching and leading age groups. Whereas before that, I was working more of a sports science consultant, working with the first teams at Manchester City, Manchester United, QPR, Blackburn. I've been at a few other clubs like your Fulhams and Charlton's as well. So I've got quite a vast experience within the football setting at all different levels of the game throughout the whole English football pyramid, which is extremely large with completely different clubs. In terms of the purpose of this presentation, um, it's basically to equip you guys uh, with a skill set and a type of mindset to be able to play with older players and against older players. And I think that's the most important thing, really, is how you can walk into a dressing room, make out, you're not just one of the one guys, you're there to make an impact because you wouldn't be there being asked to go into that dressing room unless you're there to make an impact. So, how can you go there and make an impact? But also, most importantly, when you're in the setting where you are playing in competitive fixtures against older players, or if you're an academy player transitioning into men's football, how do you make an impact playing against older players in competitive matches who are the opposition? Just to let you know, guys, we're going to do some questions at the end, okay? So we'll go through all the presentation first, and then we'll do a bit of engagement at the end where you come in, ask some questions, and I'm more willing to answer them all, okay? So, first of all, we just need to see why playing with older players is valuable. So I've just put down some key points, and it'd be good for you guys to note these down, take screenshots, write them down, however you think is the best way for you to learn and develop. But basically, when you're going in to play with older players, first time, the first thing you notice is the experience. So when you're dealing with a player who you might be 18, 19 years old, you've transitioned into the first team, you've gone into the dressing room, all of a sudden you're surrounded by players who are 25, 28, 30, 35. Some of them are even older. And first of all, you look at them in training. Yes, they work hard, but if you really look at their tactical awareness and the standards of discipline which they uphold within the group is vital. You'll normally notice a lot of the leaders, a lot of the captains are your older base players. They're not really young in around 20, 21, 22, 23. It's very rare. They are normally 26 and above. So these are the players with loads of game experience, okay, gone through all different types of scenarios. And if you just watch them on the pitch, sometimes it makes you feel. I know it myself in the past when I've gone into first team environments when I used to be a player. I was good tactically, but compared to the old heads in the dressing room, I felt tactically dumb. and I thought I was quite strong tactically with tactical awareness and stuff by listening to my coaches. But when you watched them play and when you're part of them, you do learn a lot. So experience is key. The other bit is like the challenges. Okay, so the challenges, how they build, resilience, and it helps you build resilience, and you've got to develop really fast with it. So when you're with your own age group, even when you're playing against harder level teams, it's obviously challenging and it is mentally tough. But when you're playing harder teams, when especially when you're young, you feel like, but they're winning because they've got older players. None of that comes into that conversations doesn't even count anymore. It's how you will build that resilience quicker to stop making it them types of excuses, but also how you develop as a player, which will go on throughout this presentation, how you can overcome some of these challenges to build resilience, to overcome some of these barriers and come into a dressing room and make an impact and going, right, yes, I've got a big challenge on my hand, but I'm going to have to build thick skin to get over this barrier. And it doesn't come straight away. It takes time. Just like how the older players who've gained experience have also been through the same challenges as you. So that's why you've always got to come in with a respect to them older players. Also, it's the opportunities. Um, with the opportunities playing with older players, you got to think of it in terms of physicality. It's huge. I remember when I was playing once upon a time, and the first thing my coach said, and I wasn't exactly small. I was 6 foot at 16. They said, "Lee, yeah, you're toned, etc., but you're going to have to build even more strength and get bigger." Because I went straight into non-league football, which is quite physical within this country, and all of a sudden I'm taking extra protein supplements, um, like trying to consume around like 4,000, 3.5, 4,000 like kilocalories a day of like predominantly proteins. My recovery had changed. I'd be eating a lot more. I'd be drinking milk before bed. All these like little things would come into it, which they used to do probably about 15 years ago or so. But yeah, they're the types of things they need to think of it in terms of like the physicality. You'd be going to the gym more. You'd be focusing, yes, your technical ability. I always say to my players, never go away from the technical side, but the physical side will come out. You will be expected to do more gym work and lift heavier. Obviously, trying to build that, and obviously that also incorporates nutrition. But on the other flip side of that is the mental game. And there's a little bit later on, it goes under the challenges section as well, I guess, in terms of resilience. But the mental game changes with the senior football, especially. And your level of football, especially if you're a transitioning player from grassroots or academy football into grassroots men's football or professional club first team football or semi professional club first team football, everything's relied upon results. So the mental game also changes. The emotions are completely different from the management and the coaching staff all the way through the entire playing staff. So that's where the mental side of the game changes, and that's where you'll definitely develop as a player through those types of mental challenges throughout the games and giving you further opportunities to develop, especially if you're a younger player trying to play in the older setting. So first things first, we're going to go through what it's like to, work with older teammates. So let's put yourself in a scenario because I know everyone on this call will be part of like different types of levels, different types of ages, different levels of clubs. Um, so first of all, say I'm going to point this to everyone now. Say if you've been called up by the first team manager of your club, and I don't care if this is professional, semi-professional, grassroots. You've been called up by the first team manager. That's a scenario. They've then told you to come into training. You're going to play a couple of games. You're going to train with them for the next month. So from now on, you know for that next month you're going to be training with the first team and playing in and around the first team. You don't know how many minutes you're going to get. You don't know what position you're going to play. You don't know anyone in the team. You just know everyone's older than you from a complete different range of ages, and probably ability wise as well. So the first thing in terms of the key points, you have to show and build respect. Okay, so when you go into the dressing room, you have to like build respect among others. Um, First things first, I'd say in terms of being able to be consistent within like your commitment, in terms of being reliable for training, matches, in terms of timekeeping. So like say if the meet time is, I don't know, say if it's a 3 o'clock kickoff and the meet time's at 1 p.m., make sure you're getting there by like quarter to one, 10 to one, making sure you're 10 to 15 minutes early, just making sure you look like you've come from a good environment, you've come in from um, your team you was playing with, making sure like you've come in with high standards from the start because they will be judging you from the moment you take foot in the dressing room. So you need to make sure your commitment levels, first of all, are consistent. Don't miss a session. Doesn't matter if you're injured, etc., unless it's really bad. Um, you need to make sure you're there. I'd even say, even if you're injured, you still have to go to training. If our players at Chelsea aren't, or Cheshire, well, they're paid, but like even some of the boys who are not paid, if they don't like show that type of commitment, they're done. Like they're pretty much out of the team. So you need to remember that. So just be reliable and be on time. The other thing is just make sure you're humble and confident with it as well. We'll go through a little bit more with that shortly, but um, don't shy away. Be confident within yourself and your own abilities. Um, Sometimes I actually say to some of the younger players, I actually like younger players coming into a dressing room. They might not talk too much, which is fine, but they're confident within themselves, especially with basic manners. And when it comes to the pitch, I'd still expect them to take risks, but calculated risks, pretending they're in the shoes or the head of an elder player. So just remember that. One thing you might have to do on the second point here is adapt to their playing style. So it doesn't matter if you've come from a team from 16s or 18s into the first team, they might play a different formation. They might have, they could even have the same formation, but then they have different roles and responsibilities amongst the group. So the one thing you're going to have to do is work out how they play. How quickly can you see how they play? You're gonna have to learn that sometimes, whether that's in training or matches, or even watch some videos of how they play. But ask the managers and the coaches what is expected from you in terms of like roles and responsibilities. The quicker you can be proactive in understanding those team tactics, the more likely you're going to be able to make an impact quicker as well. So the quicker you're going to get to grips with that, showing it in training, then putting it into the game, all of a sudden you meet the criteria what they're looking for. That's, I sometimes believe, the difference. Doesn't matter how good you are ability wise, if you can't adapt to their playing style quickly, I think that is a key determining whether you want to be in that team or not in the future. Because you might be a really good player, but if you don't suit or want to be part of their playing style, you will have no hope of getting in that team. You may as well ask for a transfer. Um, the other point is, contributing towards the team. So, what can you personally offer? Now, I always say for a new player going into like a first team setting or just playing with players older, you need to look at work rate. So they're going to be judging you from the moment you set foot into the dressing room. The next bit is they're going to be like judging you what you like on the training pitch, what you like on a match day as well. So you need to think, what can I offer? First of all, we all know within this whole masterclass that work rate is not a complete level of ability. So, like, I know all of us here can work hard. We can show we're working hard from our mannerism, um, in how we're going to approach the game, or the training session. We know we'll do the extra run. Um, we're just trying to add value to what we're doing and add value to the team. And first of all, while you're learning the team tactics, I think if you focus on stuff like the energy you're bringing to the group, that is the most important thing. All of a sudden, you're judged really high. I can tell you for one, senior players absolutely hate young players coming in with lack of energy and um, lack of passion. They can't stand it. They could be a really good player, but if they don't show you passion and energy, they have no time for them. All of a sudden, you've just knocked yourself a minus card on terms of their beliefs. So you need to make an impact just for your energy. Um, and I think, yeah, just be a team player. So assist and support wherever needed. And I don't just mean for the players themselves. I actually mean for the coaches. Make sure you're the first one on the training pitch. Make sure you shake the coach's hand and the manager's hand. Ask the right questions, and also help out with equipment before and after. Don't get bored of that. Don't become big time with it. I've been in a lot of first team environments where a lot of players go down that route of going, "No, I don't have to do this." I've been in semi-professional environments where they think that, where these players have come from the professional game, sink down to semi-professional, and they think they're too good to like carry the bibs in or take the mannequins out and put them back, or go and collect footballs. Don't be that player, because there's players in the professional game, you see it every week, where guess what? They're the pros and they're still able to do their job. So never get ahead of yourself. So I know I briefly touched on this, but this is where it goes into a bit more detail. Building the relationships in the dressing room. This is absolute key. I know managers, myself even being one, managers and coaches will recruit players based on their relationships and not value what they can just add on the pitch, but the value what they can add to the dressing room. And you might be a really good player, but if you've got like a bad attitude and you seem like a bit of what we call a viper in the dressing room, you're probably not right for us. So you need to make sure what value add, obviously coming into the dressing room as a younger player, introducing yourself into more senior players. So you need to start strong, like greet everyone. My thing, what I love, and I even speak to young players about doing it. It might seem a little bit busy sometimes, but I'll be honest with you, I just think it's respect, and you can only know this by um, going into it. Some of these dressing rooms are they can be quite intimidating. So first things first, work out the room. Make sure you're there first. Uh, it's a little bit easier when you're there first. It's easier to greet someone when you're the first person in the room rather than the last. Now you might be in a situation where you're not. You might have had a chat with the manager or whatever before going into the dressing room. They might do a little introduction, but if it's in your power, try and get into the dressing room first. sh- Every person who comes in separately, make sure you shake their hand, look them in the eye, shake their hand strongly in a confident way. Say hello, how you doing? My name's Lee. So you know, um, look like you're confident, but not arrogant or cocky. That's one thing they won't like. They like people being polite. They don't like cockiness. So just make sure you're confident and not cocky. Um, Another thing is be observant. So different dressing rooms have different like team cultures. So this is another thing you're actually going to be judged upon is whether you actually fit the team culture. It doesn't matter how good of a player you are. You need to fit the culture of the dressing room because let's be honest, we're not an individual sport here. This is a team sport. So how does the dynamic of the room work? Who's who's your who's your leaders of the group? Who's the quiet ones of the group? Who are the people in the group trying to be top of the group of the food chain, if you want to call it that, in terms of their I don't want to call it ego, but in terms of their personality. So you can learn the room well sometimes, but actually being polite, still being confident, but sometimes sit back and just watch. So um, on bullet point three, where it says engage carefully, still joining conversations naturally and don't force too much. But sometimes it's best to actually sit down, sit up straight, just look around the room, join in obviously conversations, as it says naturally, but look at others. Look what they're talking about. Look what their opinions are of certain things. And also don't get dragged into politics. So that's a little things early on you definitely don't want to be doing as a younger player, going into your dressing room, especially for the first time with older players, getting dragged into that type of stuff. So um, just observe the room and engage carefully throughout each person in the room. And when I say engage, not just in the dressing room, on the training pitch as well. While you're warming up, I don't know, the manager might send you for a lap around the pitch. When you're jogging around the pitch, get to know someone's name, how old they are, what position they play, what's their history, what's something about them, who do they support, all that type of stuff. Little things about them, what their strengths, it, y- this isn't a one session thing. This takes time, but I think you need to engage carefully over a period of time until you've been accepted by everyone within the group. And I think a lot of young players, especially in the pre-season, I notice, especially in semi-professional football, that's where sometimes they can go wrong. So I wouldn't want you guys to fall into the same mistake because you could be a very good player, but if you don't fit the culture and the dynamics within the dressing room, yourself won't feel comfortable, but the manager will know it's probably not the right environment for yourself. The last one is earn respect. I think everyone in this on this call can probably appreciate this in terms of earning respect, in terms of uh, working hard. So work rate. So what we've just been speaking about a few minutes ago. Show professionalism. So still be punctual, your timekeeping, where your locker is, or make sure your area, whatever it might be, is always tidy. Um, Little things like that. You just need to make sure always on it. Make sure you've got clean training gear. If it's not already provided for you, make sure your boots are always clean. Make sure you even turn up um, looking neat and tidy. And the same after the game, leaving the game after a shower, um, making sure you know you look presentable. Because especially I notice in what say the club I'm with, I've got a couple of 17, 18, 19 year olds in there, mixed in with 25, 35 year olds. And I've had to have previous words with them and go like, look, this isn't just about you performing well and being friends with people in the dressing room and performing well on the pitch. I said, you've got the board members, you've got the chairman looking at you, you've got the fans after a game where people go, how you basically going to have something to eat after the game, otherwise you get fined. Um, and what do you look like after you've like had a shower? Like, have you just got in the shower, just put some scruffy old clothes on, and just gone into the bar area to go and grab something to eat with the team, or do you still have a good, um, outlook for yourself? So just remember those types of standards. You might just think I'm waffling and talking about random bits added into this about what it's like to be put into a team. Honestly, building relationships into the dressing room is a key thing for you to take away. Never underestimate the slide this is. This is probably one of the most important ones. Look at it, I put a player into a team recently, very good player, wanted to sign him. The reason they didn't end up signing him in the end was because he didn't fit the dressing room. Good attitude player, couldn't adapt to the dressing room culture. That's why I say this slide is important because it happens to very good players. So, flipping it now. So, this is all about competing against older players. So, um, as again, I think myself when I used to play, this is a bit I was actually more excited with. Was not just like actually um, training with older players. My thing was I've always had this little bit of pressure. I like actually playing against older players. Some players don't like it; they suffer from anxiety, etc. I think you need to spin it. and try and put the positives onto it and put yourself up to different types of challenges and understanding the challenges because you know the physicality is going to be different. So I think you need to naturally up your own game. And I know experience counts. There's going to be a lot of experience where they can undo you tactically. But I think if you read the game well, if you do your homework on them as a player, if you're able to, and if you're able to do, I said to you about like understanding your roles and responsibilities within the game of what you've been asked to do, you should be able to like control the game with how you've been asked to control the game a lot better. So all of a sudden you're a young player looking like you're playing with experience. I think that's one of the main things, especially as a youngster, a lot of senior managers and coaches will look for is you might be young, but can you play at that level looking like you've played at that level for more than 2 or 3 years already? And that'll be the key differences of you getting signed. The other thing is like use your strengths. Um, Especially when you're against older players, you're full of energy. Let's be honest, everyone here is young. You've got full of energy. You've got loads of stamina. Outlast the other team. Like you should be one of the fittest on the pitch. You should be a little bit quicker on and off the ball. Make sure that works. I'm not saying just run around like a headless chicken, but we would expect you to work hard. But you know, um, they're going to be in tactical situations where they're going to try and outsmart you. Why don't you do the unexpected and outsmart them? Just a lot different. So, I think you can outsmart them by keeping to your roles and responsibilities first of all. Anyway, the other thing is sometimes you can outsmart people with. I'll give an example. Is a winger I'm thinking of recently. He's a winger who's just come into the league I play with at like national league level, and he's young. He's like 19, 20 years old, and one of the things I got him to do was playing against a certain opposition, and I got him to talk to our wing back, and this player we're talking about's got bags and bags of talent. He understands his roles and responsibilities, but this certain game he had a fullback and a winger who were very smart, tactically up against him. So our wing back actually started speaking to him. They were speaking to each other how they think they can outsmart them. So one thing I would say to you guys is be creative and talk to your teammates around you, in front of you, the side of you, and behind you, how you think they can help you outsmart the opposition because they're probably older than you and they've obviously got a lot more experience to be able to give you a bit of advice, which should be able to help you. The other thing is the mental resilience. Um, Depending what level you play, this can look very different. But obviously, staying calm under pressure and don't let the physical side intimidate your game, and don't let it like knock your confidence in terms of that. But also, one thing is massive, especially in like non-league, semi-professional football and lower down the football pyramid. It happens at professional, but even more semi-professional. A lot of players try and wind you up, even grassroots. Like a lot of players will try and wind you up who are older because they want to try and make you bite, try and get you a yellow or red card. Don't be bought into that type of game. Keep your discipline, keep your mental state cool, and you'll be able to overcome them type of barriers because believe me, there's a lot of players out there who are going to try and hit you hard, put you off your game physically, but then try and wind you up mentally to try and get you the card, to put you off your own game. Just don't allow that to happen. If I'm honest, one bit of advice: every time I've got sort of a player used to wind me up, all I'd do is smile at them. I'll just smile at them. That's all I'd do. And sometimes it used to wind them up more. And guess what? They used to try and get a yellow and red card out of me when I used to like smile at them in return and just keep smiling at them. They didn't like it because I wouldn't respond. I wouldn't be biting to their thing. Ended up most of the time them end up getting the yellow cards or the red cards because you're just trying to outsmart them. You're just trying not to, you know, let them get in your head. You need to get into theirs. And sometimes it's better not making a response. So these are just a couple of like training tips when you know you're going into work with like older base players. Quite basic, if I'm honest, but it's something to still think about and be consistent about. So I think when you think about going into work with older players, the first thing you think of is right. What's my strength like? What's my strength and power like? So what does that look like? So all of a sudden, I want to try and focus some of my training in around like building a bit of like upper body strength, bit of core strength, improving like my endurance a little bit more. So they're the things I'd automatically think about building the strength and fitness wise. But then I think it's important for bullet point number two is refining your technical skills. So you notice, especially when it's how to explain it. Um, I work with a lot of players at senior level who they know when a young player comes into the group, they automatically expect them to have a good skill set. They know they won't be put into the group without them being good already. Um, the one thing, if you want to gain their respect quicker, is practice the quick decision making, and you can do that through like small sided games. So that's probably the best way you can do things. Sorry, can someone just put their mic off, please? You just got your mic on. If you just put it on mute for us, please. Thank you. Um, yeah, it's just practicing the quick decision making. That's something they would sort of like rely upon yourself. So just make sure of that. The other thing actually, a lot of first teams admire in young players when they first enter the group is if you can do the basics well. Everyone would want you to obviously take a risk because that's the reason you've been put into that environment. Take a risk, do that skill, but do it calculated. Um, don't be that young player who comes in and just does a risk every single time. Be calculated with it. So know when to take the risk, know not when to take the risk. Stuff like focusing on your first touch and your passing accuracy, honestly, like is huge. Something which can look so basic, can you make it very quick? So where you've been playing at a level where it's probably still very high, you'll notice the game level is a lot quicker. So can you keep the same technique under more pressure at a quicker speed, executing that skill? That is something which a lot of young players sometimes struggle to cope with. And that's why they need the experience of knowing when to take one touch, when to take two touch, when to take three touch. So you will notice because the style of the game is a little bit different, your decision making on your first touch and your second touch, or your when you're driving with the ball, is a lot different. But if you can come into a training session and be able to unlock that straight away, you will gain a lot more respect from the senior players themselves. The other thing is it's good to you need to analyze a game of what you're going into. So like if you can watch matches of not just the team you're going to be playing with, but the teams you're playing against, not not just you might have an opposition who you've got on a Saturday, so you might just watch them. I don't mean that. I mean actually watch various levels every single day um, of different teams in that league at the senior level or just age groups above. If that is something which you can access, um, I'll really make use of that because that will probably show a lot of their technical and tactical attributes. And that will really help you when you're going into the games and what to expect. You might be able to like picture some of these moments before they happen. So you would become a little bit more wiser, or if they was to happen, you was unaware. It makes you click. Ah, I remember they sort of this type of level. This is what they're good at, and it's probably due to the experience around them in terms of players. So just remember that. Also, it gives you a time to learn the roles and responsibilities of yourself, especially if you're watching a team you're playing for, if that is something you're able to do. So, we briefly went over this, but the main things of when you're going up at any age group, Doesn't matter what age group now, first team or even just up grassroots or academy age groups. Just go in there with just focusing on your confidence, just without arrogance. So as long as you remain coachable, you're never going to be in the arrogant section. When I mean coachable, I don't just mean that from the manager and the coaches, and you're just like, it'd be amazing if you can just be a sponge taking in full of information. That'd be brilliant. But also be coachable with the players around you and the experience around you because you're there to learn. Because whether you're going to be playing for their first team or not, can you use that club, that first team, as a platform to go higher? And that's where you probably need the experienced players around you, and that's where you're not just going to be coachable through the coaches; it's going to be coachable through the players as well. Um, One massive thing as well for younger players, you definitely do need to be adaptable. So, you need to be flexible within your roles and responsibilities, and especially the type of playing style and strategies the manager will come up with. You're going to notice it's going to be a lot different from the level you've come up again. Sorry, you're going to notice it's a lot different compared to the level you've previously experienced in the past. Um, as you can imagine, every manager has their own different playing styles and how they want things to look like. So how are you going to have to adapt from what you've been doing into their team? As again, it's one of the key contributions to whether you're going to be in that team in the future or not. Work ethic wise, remember you've always got. It's a non-negotiable. Let's be honest. Work ethic. Doesn't matter what we're talking about. It doesn't matter if we're talking about a gym session here. It doesn't matter if we're on about a training session, a match, playing with older players, playing with younger players. Um, Work ethic is a non-negotiable in everything we're doing, and just making sure we're putting in the hard work both on and off the pitch. This is an interesting one. So, just handling setbacks. So, as a young player going into the older age group, you can, um, where you've not built complete connection, especially in the early days of going in, you're gonna come across a lot of barriers in all different parts of the game, from the dressing room to from adapting to the dressing room to adapting to the playing style and being able to be coachable with them type of coaches and managers in and around the type of players on the training ground to then going onto the pitch. Then also when there's fans involved, hopefully they're playing at that level. So, there's a lot of a lot of players can. It's how you deal with certain setbacks. And the one thing is, it's like you judging yourself after a game. It doesn't matter if you win, lose, or draw. Um, One thing: don't go to your manager straight after the game. Go to him 24 hours later. Analyze the game first. Get the emotion, not the emotion coming off a pitch. Get the emotion after you've slept on it, which can still hurt, by the way, as well, obviously, and it should do. But um, try and get that emotion side away and stay positive. And I was speaking to a player the other day, um, funny enough, from Train Effective, who's come to me as an international student within my academy at Chelsea, with the college. And he was looking at it in terms of going, "Oh, Lee, this is like really hard, like living here and, being so far away from home. Um, and I don't know if I'm developing. I don't feel like I'm developing." But then on his game on Wednesday, he set one up and scored, won the game, brilliant. And he still felt like that 48 hours after that game. And the reason being is because he was being challenged. And the conversation we had was, hold on a second, you've gone from being someone who had struggled to make the bench to a bench player to then starting to then scoring a goal. That's growth alone within like 3 months. Um, some players expect growth straight away, where it takes a little while. But what happened, he's actually developed pretty much every single training session, every single week, but he's not realized he's developing because he's finding it tough. and where the other players are developing around him, they're still getting better and better, and he's getting better and better as well. But no one else stalls in our environment. That's not the plan. So we always want him to get better. So sometimes when you do feel it's a challenge and going into senior football feels like this way, you feel like sometimes you feel a little bit out of your depth, um, and it can knock your confidence back, but you can't allow it to. Seek feedback from your coaches, seek feedback from your players, like your teammates. Ask how you are improving, what you improved on, and what you're doing well. But also go like, look, how do I now improve it to get onto the next level? So that constant feedback is massively important, um, and it's got to come from both the manager, the coaches, and the players, especially the more senior players. Go to them asking for improvements. They will naturally say you're doing well if you look like you've earned the feedback. So especially from players, especially the older ones. So they're more willing to give you out improvements, not for the sake of giving out improvements, but improvements for your own position. But you've got to stay positive, um, because there's going to be loads of different challenges going into a senior setting or playing with older players. If you're at an age where you go transition from like 18, 19 straight into first team, you then know you might be the youngest player per year. That changes. So it's a little bit different. And when you're playing senior football, I'll be honest with you, no one cares about your age. All they care about is can you do the job? That's all they care about. So, you know, if you, as your young players, you need to be adaptable going into that, being positive, and also seeking that type of feedback, and also analyzing your games. If you get your games recorded, you really do need to analyze them, and don't just look at your good bits. Anyone can do that. You've got to be looking at the bits where the nasty bits, which you go, do you know what? Yes, that pass I made was successful, but it might have been a better decision to make this pass instead. Or if it was the right decision of the pass, what was the technique like on the pass? How was it? Was it good detail? Was it to their right foot, like, or the correct foot? Sorry. Um, you just need to think about the detail of how you're doing it and the speed you're doing it at, because you're always seeking to improve. So, main things really in any, it doesn't matter what presentation we're talking about now, just football in general, um, especially within yourself to improve as a player. Respect the game. Um, Especially as you're going into the olders, um, getting yourself into older age categories or into senior football. Respect the game, show sportsmanship. Doesn't matter if you like win, lose, or draw. Just respect the people around you. That that's not an age thing. That should be a general life skill which you should have been in the game of football or even in any industry in life. Being a leader in your own way. So leading by example. I'm not saying you've got to be captain. You might be a young player going into senior football, but be a leader even for yourself. Um, Show that you're beyond your age. Don't if you're like an 18-year-old or 17-year-old going into a thing, don't act like a 17, 18-year-old. Like you have to act older. You have to act with an older head because you're playing in around older heads. So show that type of discipline, and remember, working hard is a non-negotiable. You have to do that anyway. Never take your foot off the gas, and always stay hungry for it. So, like, always strive to look to obviously go further improvement. Doesn't matter of that level. So, once you've got yourself established within that level, can you use that level as a platform to play higher? That's what I always say to my players, because I don't want to be coaching them as the final product. I want them to be managed by 5 to 10 managers beyond me, but also levels higher than me. Um, Nice little quote to end with, but just to let you make you aware. That's like my Instagram. That's my TikTok. for both Next Gen and Chelsea. My Next Gen doesn't have a TikTok, but if you want like any type of updates, and even based from this presentation here, types of players I deal with, and in terms of where this presentation goes, that's what the type of players you'll sort of see with the type of training we offer in terms of from that type of training into the senior game. So, um, I'm gonna have some question time now, guys. I know we haven't got long left, but in terms of this presentation, is there any question you guys have got about getting into senior level, going playing above like age groups above yourself? You can text it into the box and I can answer for you. Any
Thanks very
questions?
much, Lee.
Sorry?
Thank you for a great session. As Lee said, everyone, feel free to ask some questions in the chat or even unmute yourself and ask into the chat in that way instead. Okay, we'll give you some time to ask the questions now.
Any questions at all, guys? You can, as Matt said, you can unmute yourself. You can put it in the box, text it out. I don't mind.
Hey, Lee.
Yeah.
Someone just muted their mic. I'm not sure who that was. If you've got a question, go for it. I was just going to start us off while people have maybe a bit more of a think.
Okay.
Remember, everyone, that these sessions are great because you have a chance to ask questions that are specifically related to your case, maybe at the club you're playing at or any circumstance you find yourself in. So remember to use these sessions to ask Lee things that are related to your current situation. Anyway, I'll start us off. I was just going to ask, how can I prepare physically to handle these sorts of games against older players? And do you think that's something important to think about, or is it more about thinking about your technique?
I think the physical side is huge because it's the first thing everyone sort of thinks about playing with older players. So I'm just going to bring back up the slide I briefly went on it, touched on it. So basically, I think it is important. So the physical side is I know even when I was a player, I used to think, right, what have I got to do to physically compete with these grown men? I'm 16 years old. These guys are giants. So how do you physically prepare yourself? In terms of you can develop yourself training programs in the lead up to these types of games, and obviously that's got to be a consistent thing, um, which is done over time. Obviously, concentrating on your core, your strength, your power, that type of attributes. But in terms of preparing yourself for the game, I think it's a natural mental battle. So even though you're physically, you might be, not as strong as what they are, but I think mentally you can use your mental strength to work with your physical attributes to make out that you are. I think you always need to go into a game confident, not cocky, but confident that you're actually no lower than them. They might be bigger than you, but it's like Messi when he went in, really small, um, very small. He looked very like geeky in a way. Um, bless him when he went in to play football against like older men, but he was able to hold off the big powerhouses up against him through his mainly his core strength and his technique on the ball. But he went in there with confidence and didn't shy away from tackles. He worked hard, pressed well. And all of a sudden, I think physically, when you're working hard, you get over that strength side of what you believe the other players are like. So, yeah, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. That's really helpful. Thank you so much. Any more questions from anyone else? I've got one more, but I'm still just trying to wait. I want to see if someone else in the call
Yeah,
wants to ask a question first. I can still see there's a handful of you on listening. So if you do have something, feel free to ask now, either unmute yourself or in the chat.
normally get loads of questions.
Yeah, everyone's a bit shy
I
today. I'm
know.
not sure. Maybe everyone's busy taking notes, and maybe it's also a sign, Lee, that you've covered everything very well. um, I'm going to ask one more, just
That's fun.
for the sake of using this part of
Yeah,
the call to get the most out of you.
that's fun.
Um, I remember when I first started playing um, with players older than myself, age 16, and I often felt that I would be targeted playing at that level. Like specifically, players would
Yeah.
try and get into you early in the game. I was wondering what you can do and how you can use the sort of older teammates on your team to try and help deal with those situations, especially when you're literally just getting kicked. Is there anything you think you can do working with your teammates?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, and it's something what does happen to a lot of players out there. And in fact, I was part of an interview the other day where um, the players were talking about what type of things they hate to hear from the touchline. And one of the things they used to hate, and they do it to younger players, playing it in senior football, and going, "He's the trigger," basically saying he's young, he's going to be weaker, he's going to be the trigger player and they'll class you as a weaker player because you're young. Doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So I always believe that older players, especially when you're part of a good team, the older players will, through instinct, protect them players anyway. I believe it's down to the coaches and the managers to also protect the player in those scenarios. But if when you're the player, when that's you're being called the trigger, or you're the player who you've been kicked up in the air a few times, like what you've just said there. Um, I think one of the things that I say to my players is, whatever you do, do not make out that you're hurt. So you might have been kicked really hard. You're down on the floor. You've got a free kick. Whatever you do, try and get off the floor quick as you can. Make out that you're not hurt. Um, and it sounds a bit stern, but like, yeah, just try and get yourself back up and playing quickly as you can, um, rather than like getting the physio on or other teammates around you. I think it shows a sign of strength, and it might sound a bit old school in saying that, but a lot of pro contracts and semi-professional contracts, they rely on players, and they need to rely on players being strong, physically as well as mentally. And for that to happen, you have to be able to take the knocks. So I think it's a great point, Matt, because I think everyone knows, especially the smaller players, they do get knocked quite a lot, um, and they will be the triggers to knock. But also the mental side, what we were speaking about in terms of don't bite to the situation, so don't react. Um, just get up off the floor if you can. Um, show strength, show mental strength, and crack on. But don't bite to the situation. Don't complain to the ref. Don't complain to the teammates. I think that if you are struggling with that type of thing, as long as you've got a good captain, they'll probably make sure they get involved very quickly in terms of protection, especially of younger players. Um, and hopefully for you players on the call, when one day when you step into senior football and you're one of the main men on the team, you're one of the leaders, you need to take control of those situations and read them yourself. So I know obviously we're doing a presentation based on you guys going into senior football, but what happens when you're a senior player and you're then established and you're having to get the new younger pros or younger semi-pros coming into senior football? You want to treat them, hopefully, how you've been treated. And if you've not been treated in the right way by teammates for different experiences, etc., how do you put that correct as a player yourself? That's where the leadership comes into it. But yeah, there's. I think the best thing really is when you do get those types of knocks, is to try and get back up and carry on, play with strength, whether it's training, even with your own teammates in training, do it in training. Um, Best time to practice in training. We're all going to get knocks. It's football, it's team sport. So yeah.
That's a great answer. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole point of this question is that it's not easy, is it? So
No,
we really
definitely not. And it
appreciate
hurts.
your advice. Yeah, and it hurts too. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks so much, Lee. And to everyone listening, thanks very much for listening in. Yeah, please do use these sessions to engage and ask specific questions about the scenario you find yourself at in your teams, and yeah, just try and get as much out of these sessions as you can. But yeah, thanks so much, Lee, and we'll catch you on
Yeah.
another session soon.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Cheers, guys. Have a great day/evening.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye.